Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and I'm very excited to bring this massive collaboration to you, queer booktubers recommending queer books. I put a call out on Twitter for anybody who is a queer booktuber if they wanted to be part of a collab, and that's what this is. What I asked of everyone is to recommend a backlist queer book and a new or upcoming queer book. And for the most part, people stuck to these rules. There were a couple of people that recommended really new books for their backlist books, or books that came out a while ago but they didn't realize that they had a different release, or straight up one person that recommended like 4 or 5 books. I'm going to keep this intro short because we have 20-some booktubers. I'm not going to give you a final number because as soon as I do, a last-minute clip will come into my inbox. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves as well as the books that they picked. All of the books and all of the booktubers will be listed down below. It might be too much for the description box. I might have to make a Google Doc with the information. We'll find out when I go to put this online. So without further ado, in the order that people submitted their videos, here we go.
Hi guys, this is Sarah from Septimus Snape, and I'm here to recommend you An Accident of Stars by Meadows. This is a portal fantasy where this Australian girl Saffron accidentally goes through a portal into a different world and cannot get back. This book has rep for polyamory, genderqueer, and LGBTQ, including asexuality, but not limited to. This is the first book in the Manifold Worlds duology, and I really enjoyed it. I'm also really looking forward to reading the new book by Hannah Moskowitz, Sugar Summer. This is marketed as being a lesbian, dirty dancing retelling. Do I need to say anything more? I hope you're having a wonderful Pride Month. Bye!
Hello, I am R from the channel R Jensen, and I am here to recommend you some queer books. First up, we have a backlist title, and that is Upside Down by N.R. Walker. This book is a contemporary ace romance. I am asexual myself, so I absolutely adored this, and I thought that the representation in here was phenomenal. If you want a little bit of plot, besides the fact that it's just an ace romance, it's about Jordan, who has identified as gay for the longest time. His friend drags him to an asexual support group meeting led by the wonderful Hennessy, and they meet, and Hennessy is like, yeah, this is what it means to be asexual. And then Jordan is like, oh my god, that's me. And so it's about like Jordan coming to terms with being asexual and Hennessy like helping him out. It's just real good. So you should totally go read this. So while you're at it, you can also go pick up this new release, Spellhacker by M.K. England. So Spellhacker is about this gang of friends. They do heists, and they are going on their last heist, but on their last heist they discover something that could change the fate of the world. So like they have to fix the world, essentially. It's a great fantasy with some sci-fi elements thrown in there. So the reason why I recommend this as a queer book is because 1, it has a non-binary love interest who I would die for, and 2, the main character is female, so you got a female non-binary love plot that you just don't see a lot of. I'm non-binary as well, so I loved seeing the non-binary representation in Spellhacker. M.K. England is non-binary as well, so, you know, that representation is fucking lit. It was just so, like, validating to see a character use they, them pronouns, like, throughout the book, and, like, it's not questioned or anything like that, and it was just so good. And if you decide to read Upside Down or Spellhacker, you would make me very happy.
Hi everyone, this is Rachel with the Shades of Orange BookTube channel, and you might not be aware, but I'm actually a bisexual woman. I am of course also a booktuber who reads a lot of adult horror, science fiction, and fantasy, and I definitely look for diverse stories, especially queer representation in the books that I read. I wanted to represent my favorite genres in my recommendations here, so for my backlist title, I'm gonna go with a book that is both horror and science fiction, and also one of my favorites, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, and this is a story about a group of scientists that go to the Marianas Trench to find out what happened to a ship that previously went there to film a mockumentary about mermaids. They go to find out what happened, and perhaps the mermaids are more real than they thought. So this is a classic horror creature feature that also blends in a lot of good biology. And of course, this is also a book with some fantastic diverse representation. The main character is bisexual herself, and you also get a lesbian love interest as well as all sorts of other people represented, including some people from the deaf community, which is not something I see a lot in my fiction. And for an upcoming release, I want to mention Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon Lee, which is written by a trans man of Korean descent and follows a non-binary artist who is tasked by the government to help them fix a dragon-like construct that they have brought to life using sigils. And this story quickly spirals into a story of resistance and rebellion. And I got a chance to read it early, and it is absolutely fantastic, great representation, and just a lot of fun with a really cool magic system. So definitely one to put on your TBR for October. Otherwise, thank you so much for including me in this video, and I will hopefully talk to y'all soon.
Hi, I'm Theresa from the channel A Reading Elf, and I'm here to hype some queer books. So first up, I've got The Abyss Surrounds Us by Emily Skrutskie. This is a backlist title that does not get nearly enough love, featuring a Chinese American main character who is very sapphic. There's lady pirates, there's sea monsters, it's futuristic, it's really, really good, and I would definitely recommend it. I'm also here to hype a new or upcoming title, and I've chosen Camp by Rosen. I read an arc for this book and I'm very, very hyped about it, and I really want people to read it. It has so much diversity, so much positivity. It's so queer, it's so camp, and it's something I definitely recommend. Got a gay main character with a gay love interest who is half Korean, not a single straight character. You've got more gay characters, you've got a lesbian, you've got demisexual, you've got ace and arospec, you've got a trans character, you've got a non-binary character, you've got so much rep in one little book. So much positivity, sex positivity, deconstructing toxic masculinity, queer history. It's a lot in one little book, but it still remains so light and fun to read, and I really recommend it.
Hi friends, my name's Adriana and my channel is Perpetual Pages. A backlist queer title that recently blew my mind was The Book of Salt by Monique Truong. Its own voices for the Vietnamese rep, and it's a queer historical story about a man named Bain who was a live-in cook for Gertrude Stein and her lover Alice Toklas, and it's basically an elaborate extrapolation of real-life events. This cook was literally a footnote in one of Alice Toklas's cookbooks, I believe, and Monique Truong basically sought to explore his story, where he came from, what he sacrificed, what his life would have been like as a queer Vietnamese man living in France. It's about the myriad of ways people erase him and refuse to see him, and how he's taken advantage of and scorned for not being fluent in French. But it's also about how he's trying to grow where he's planted, trying to hold on to his dignity and his humanity, and about how living in a city of doors that are closed to him only makes him that more determined to find spaces where he can exist. As for a queer release that I'm excited for, it would be disingenuous for me to say anything except Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This comes out on September 1st. It's an own voices queer Latinx story about Yadriel, who is queer and trans, and his entire family is made up of brujex, but they won't let him perform the brujo rites of passage because they don't know for sure that it would work for someone who's trans. But when his primo is suddenly killed, Yadriel wants to help his family track down his cousin's spirit, and he hastily undergoes the ritual by himself, but he ends up summoning the wrong spirit. That would be Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy who refuses to be guided into the afterlife until Yadriel helps him take care of his unfinished business. As a queer and trans-spec Latinx reader myself who has already read this story, I am a little bit biased, but the story has a bit of everything. There's magic, there's mystery, there's self-discovery and self-empowerment, and there's even a pretty sweet romance. All joking aside, I need everyone to pre-order this book because it's not just going to be a mirror, but rather a door flung wide open for so many of us.
Hi, my name is Dakota, and for my backlist book, I have picked You Asked for Perfect by Laura Silverman. This book follows a high school senior named Ariel. He is currently in the midst of applying to Harvard, and he is heavily burdened with a lot of academic responsibility as well as social responsibility. Ariel is bisexual, and he eventually starts to develop a crush on his calculus tutor, Amir. I picked this one because it is so much more than just like a queer romance. It also highlights the struggles and burdens put upon students to get good grades and to get into good colleges, and I think this is a really important story to share, especially now. And I feel like this is one of those things that you don't really see a lot in present day media, so I think it is a good read to highlight that. And it also has a lot of queer characters. It's definitely a very diverse cast of characters, both sexuality and nationality wise. This was a really good read when I read it, and I suggest that you pick it up if you can. For an upcoming release that I am very excited about, I am picking One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This book isn't technically coming out until summer of 2021, but it is upcoming, and honestly, as long as it's by Casey McQuiston, I'm going to hype it everywhere I can. There's not actually a lot released about it yet since its publication date is still pretty far away at this point, but it is pitched as a queer Kate and Leopold, and I'm really excited about it because Casey McQuiston has so far a really good track record at making really complex and interesting characters, as well as having a really well-developed plot. So I'm excited about this book for a whole slew of reasons, mostly because it's Casey McQuiston. I would hype anything of theirs. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston.
Hi guys, I'm Shelly from Collie of the Wobbles, and my 2 queer book recommendations are, for a past read, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is a book set in modern times but with a technical twist. That is, it's very much like an episode of Black Mirror, where everything is the same, but technology is just that one step further. And that tech is an app called Deathcast. At midnight, the day you're going to die, you get a call from Deathcast saying it is your last day. Do with it as you will. There are many other different companies that have sprung up around Deathcast, and one of them is called Last Friend. It's an app where you go on, you go, I'm dying today, wanna be my friend? Instagram for the nearly dead? This book revolves around Rufus and Mateo, who both have got the call from Deathcast that they are going to die today. So they become friends online and then they meet in real life, and you follow the last 24 hours as they have many, many adventures and try to kind of come to terms with what is about to happen. The questions that are brought up in this book really, really drill into your brain. Do they die because they meet? If Deathcast hadn't called them that day, would they have died that day? It brings up so many questions that as soon as you read it, you feel like you have to go back and reread it, which I have done multiple times. Every time I read this, I get something else out of it. Mateo and Rufus are both cisgendered boys. Mateo's orientation is queer/gay, and Rufus identifies as bisexual. They are also both Latinx. Moving on to book recommendation number 2, for a new read, I have picked The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. It's so new that I don't have a physical copy yet, but I did listen to it on audiobook. It revolves around Cal, who is a 17-year-old and has a pretty substantial, successful social media platform, and he lives in New York. But the kick of it is, his dad's a pilot and has applied to be in the next NASA program. He gets the call that he's been accepted, and they are whisked off to Houston for their lives to turn upside down. But this particular NASA mission has a bit of a twist of a reality show attached to it. This is where Cal meets Leon. Leon is sold as the perfect poster boy. He is athletic, he is very smart, he is very good looking, and he's supposedly perfect on reality TV, but is he in real life? Both Cal and Leon are cisgendered boys. They both identify as gay, and I believe they are both white. I don't believe their race is mentioned, actually. But this book heavily deals with multiple mental illnesses, such as anxiety, depression, and possible OCD, as Cal likes to control everything around him, and his mother often, and pretty much all the time, deals with severe anxiety and depression, and now she's being forced to move to Houston and be on TV. It's bringing up all of these mental health issues within the family, and it follows the family dynamic as well as the relationship between Cal and Leon. I was addicted to this book. I just had to know how the frig it was going to end, because there were so many different things going on, from the relationship to the family dynamic to the argument in social media and NASA and who owns the rights to everything. It was really, really interesting, and I highly recommend it.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm from the channel Crooked Reader, and I am bisexual and also on the age spectrum. The 2 books I want to recommend are The Gods of Tango by Carolina de Robertis and The Last Bus to Everland by Sophie Cameron. So the first of those is The Gods of Tango, and this is a book about a girl who has to move to Buenos Aires to marry this man, and when she gets there she finds out that he's dead, so she starts cross-dressing as a man in order to live in this city on her own without having to go back home or having to marry someone else, because she wants to be more independent, and she finds out that she actually enjoys dressing as a man and presenting as a man more than she likes presenting as a woman, and discovers that she's trans. I really, really loved this book, partly as just a work of queer historical fiction. I really liked the fact that it was about cross-dressing but actually recognized the trans experience, because I think there are so many books about cross-dressing that just kind of ignore that reality for a lot of people, and this was about that, you know, about that experience of actually wanting to dress that way and wanting to present yourself that way, which I thought was a different way to see this that I really appreciated. And I also really liked the aspect of this about entertainment and about being a queer entertainer, and the way that music is discussed, especially because our main character comes from kind of a classical music background, but she gets involved in tango, which is a much more improvisational and emotional kind of music, and I really loved that as a violinist who is classically trained. Exploring that kind of music in a book was super interesting, and it made me want to pick up my instrument, which is rare for me. The main character's love interest also, I don't know if she actually dresses up in drag, but she does sing songs that are written for men without changing the pronouns. So there is at least some kind of drag element there, which I also really liked reading about. And this kind of changed my reading taste in that it is a queer historical fiction book, which is something I did not know that I liked before I read this. So I really appreciate it for that. So I would definitely recommend this especially if you love queer historical fiction. You should definitely read this book. As I mentioned, the other book I want to talk about is The Last Bus to Everland by Sophie Cameron, and this is about a gay boy named Bertie who is kind of unhappy with his life, and he comes across a boy who introduces him to this magical world called Everland, but he can only access it at certain times of night, and he always ends up having to go back home, and eventually he has to choose between staying in the reality that he knows and staying in Everland. It is a very character-driven book. The world building is like barely there, so if you're in it for like the fantasy elements, you're probably not in the right book, but it's very, very much about the characters, which I loved, and I really loved Bertie's family situation. It felt very, very similar to mine, and Bertie also gets to explore expressing himself as a queer person a lot in this book. He starts wearing makeup and wearing costumes when he goes to Everland, and he is accepted for that in a way that he isn't in his normal life, because he's bullied for being queer. His family isn't like super gung-ho accepting of him. It's about him learning to see the people in his life for their genuine selves and see himself for his genuine self. There's a lot of side character rep as well. Beyond just Bertie being gay, there's a bisexual side character, there's a disabled side character, there's at least 2 other male side characters that are also interested in men, so it is also quite diverse, and I would definitely recommend it if you like character-driven books.
Hi everyone, my name is Taryn, and I'm from the channel BookTubers. So for today I have for you 2 recommendations. The first one is Peter Darling by Austin Chant. So basically, of course, you can actually kind of tell that it's a Peter Pan retelling. This is the story of Peter who decides to leave Neverland and give up basically his dreams of being a child forever. And when he leaves Neverland, he becomes in Wendy Darling. But when he discovers that growing up is not that fun, he decides to come back. But what happened? He, of course, left his land, and now everything has changed. And the Lost Boys are now men. And, the war games that they used to play, now they are real. But you know what is more surprising is that Peter starts to realize his attraction for Captain Hook. I think that this is a really fast read. I loved it. I love that it's an autoconclusive. You know, when you're going to a fantasy world, it tends to be long and it tends to be like a series, and this is not the case, and I loved that. It was excellent. The book was amazing. I want to read you one quote that I thought that was fantastic. Your obsession is flattering, Pan, and I share it. Obsession? Is that not what they call it? Hook said. When 2 men can think of nothing but each other. I am leaving you that in there. The other one that I want to recommend you is George by Alex Gino. This is a middle grade contemporary and also pretty short, and I loved it. So basically we are here following the story of George, of course, and even though was born as a boy, George knows that is a girl. So basically we are here following her story, her struggles, and also there's a play going on her school that it's Charlotte's Web playing. And yes, it's excellent. Of course, she wants to be Charlotte, but the teacher says that she can't because she's a boy. The story is about discovering who you really are, and of course, making others to treat you from who you really are and not what you seem to be. It's excellent. It's awesome. The friendship in this is amazing. So yes, and also I want to read you this because it's awesome. George stopped. It was such a short little question, but she couldn't make her mouth from the sounds. Mom, what if I'm a girl? Those were my recommendations, and also if you read George and you want to keep reading more, Alex Gino published a book. It's the sequel of George. We are following the story of one of the characters that appear on George. Of course, it's Rick. Hope that you like my recommendations.
Hey, my name is Beck. I run the channel Mooney Reads by Starlight, where I discuss books that I read and that I want to read. I recommend books across all sorts of different genres. But for this video in particular, I did want to focus on nonfiction. The two that I chose are really important in a lot of different ways, but I also think that they'll be a little bit more accessible to people who aren't used to reading nonfiction. The backlist title that I chose is Making History by Eric Marcus. This is a series of oral histories told by people who were activists between 1945 and 1990. So rather than having to follow this huge narrative and have lots of little details that you have to keep track of, this is basically just a series of interviews. Each chapter is fairly small and digestible, and you get to hear from lots of different types of people. This has interviews with the person who ran the first lesbian magazine. You get to hear from people who founded the Mattachine Society, which was one of the first successful LGBT groups in the United States. You also get to hear from people who were at Stonewall, including Sylvia Rivera, and people who were involved in the HIV and AIDS epidemic. This is just a really incredible book. It's changed my life in a lot of ways, and honestly, it cannot be overstated how important it is to hear from history, especially minority history, from minority people. None of these events are really things that you get to hear about in most history classrooms, so it's really important if you're invested in the LGBT community at all, to actually get connected with LGBT history. The new release that I chose to highlight is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is the best book that I have read all year. It's a memoir that focuses on her experience being in a queer abusive relationship. It's a very literary memoir. Most of it is actually told in second person. You get these really short chapters and snippets that describe to you various scenes and various emotions that she's feeling throughout falling in love with this person and then realizing how their relationship is deteriorating in this particular way. And all of this is framed by a few first-person chapters that focus on societal issues that complicate this further. She talks about how the media is particularly harmful for LGBT people, and also how the court systems have really wronged queer women who have been trying to get justice for their own abusive situations. This is an absolutely beautiful book that focuses on an issue that a lot of people just don't talk about. It's really important that we're aware of issues like this, because if we never talk about problems, they don't get fixed. Both of these books are great ways to expand your understanding of the LGBT community, and they're both really a joy to read.
Hey everyone from Kathy's channel, I'm Eric from Break Even Books, and I'm joining this little collaboration to talk about some queer books. So one queer book that I read a long time ago and I really enjoyed was Release by Patrick Ness. It's a dual perspective book. So one of them is of a girl that's a ghost and she's trying to discover how she died. And then the other perspective is a guy who is struggling with his identity, and he comes from a very religious family. So it's him trying to figure out himself and dealing with the repercussions of having that religious family and how they feel about who he is as a person, and then also the girl trying to discover how she died, and it all is set in like this small town. I really enjoyed this book. It was my first introduction to queer literature, so that was awesome, and it really made me want to pick up more books by Patrick Ness. I still have yet to do that, but I'm looking forward to it. And then the one book that I'm looking forward to, it's already out, and that is What If It's Us by Adam Silvera and Becky Abertali. I haven't read it yet, but I've had it on my shelf for a really long time, and I'm really looking forward to it because I loved Love, Simon by Becky Abertali, and I read Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera, and I liked both of them as authors. So I think them collaborating on this book is going to be fantastic. Anyways, thank you, Kathy, for having me on this video. If you haven't, you guys, you should subscribe to Kathy's channel.
A backlist title I think everyone should read is Caroline's Heart by Austin Chant. It's about a cowboy and a witch who fall in love in the 1800s, and both of them are trans and bi. I really like how this book deals with acceptance and loss and all of that stuff, but mainly I just like it because it's an adorable romance between trans people. An upcoming title I cannot wait for is May the Best Man Win by C.R. Eliot. This is about a trans man and his ex-boyfriend as they compete for the title of Homecoming King and realize they may still have feelings for each other. I'm so excited about this because I think there needs to be more cute books about trans people that aren't just about how horrible the lives of trans people are.
Hey, I'm Chris, and the first book I wanted to talk about is Last Seen Leaving by Caleb Roerick. This is a young adult queer mystery thriller kind of book, and it's also one of the first one of those I reached for. I didn't read a lot of books in the young adult thriller kind of realm because I really didn't see any with queer characters that were standing out to me, and this was such a good read for me to pick up. It mixed kind of like the mystery thriller elements together so well with the self-discovery aspect for the main character, and also some elements of love and friendship and a very strong parental unit the main character has. So it was just excellent. Really big fan of this book. The 2020 queer release that I'm super excited for is Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. This book had me at queer black girls teaming up to throw over the patriarchy, and they had me even more with the aspect of it being in the former kingdom of Cinderella, and Cinderella's story has had some lasting effects on the kingdom. Super excited for this one. I pre-ordered it. I cannot wait to have it in my hands. It's going to be so good.
Hey everyone, this is Mary. I used to post on a channel called Mary Reads, and I'm joining Kathy today to do this epic collaboration that she has. So for my backlist title, I had to go with Criminal Intentions by Cole McCade. This is probably one of my favorite series to date. This is technically the second book. I don't know where the first book is. And this has so much representation. It is like a detective murder mystery, so it follows these two main characters, one who is Malcolm Kalaji and the other one is Jeong Jae-yoon, as they are first partnered with each other in the police force. I forget where exactly. Malcolm Kalaji is either Pakistani or part Pakistani in a kind of non-practicing Muslim, and Jeong Jae-yoon is Korean, and it kind of follows them as they become rivals to friends to lovers eventually between the two main characters. Besides them both being people of color, I believe Kalaji is either pan or bi. It's never explicitly stated if it's one or the other, but he does have an ex-wife and he is also interested in men. And Jeong Jae-yoon is gay and later found out to be kind of demi-ace later in the series. Their chief of detective is a black woman who is aromantic. Their computer nerd person is Native American and two-spirit. I don't think there is a white character in here, and it's just fantastic and so gorgeously written. Now for my most anticipated, or one of my most anticipated queer new releases or upcoming releases, I'm gonna have to go with Behind the Sun and Above the Moon. This is a queer anthology, a non-binary science fiction and fantasy anthology. I don't know, it just sounds so good. I'm not a big science fiction reader, but short science fiction has really been really amazing for me, so I thought I should have to check this out. Also look at that cover, and there's just some of the authors. I will just quickly read you the synopsis on the back because that's all I knew. So, a queer anthology inspired by magic and the cosmos, a vast and beautiful place where planets, stars, comets, entire galaxies even, live without borders, specifications, or binaries. Stories span science fiction, science fantasy, contemporary fabulism, and magical realism, and celebrate non-binary and transgender characters. That's all I had to know. Those are my two picks for this collaboration. I cannot wait to see who else Kathy has lined up for this, because my TBR is about to get a lot longer. And if you haven't checked out anything else of Kathy's or haven't subscribed, definitely do so. She posts really amazing videos, really amazing discussions, and she's just a really amazing human being.
What's up everyone, my name is Kelsey from Kelsey Reads, and I have a couple of queer books to recommend you. First up is Backlist book, and for that I want to recommend The Last Sun by Katie Edwards. This released in 2018 and is the first book in a 9-book series, only 2 of which are released at this point. This is set in a world 70-ish years after the Kingdom of Atlantis is discovered and destroyed in the subsequent war with the human race. after which the remaining citizens of Atlantis relocate to the island of Nantucket. The political structure of this world is based on the major arcana of tarot, and the magic system is so interesting and complex, requiring the use of sigils and other magical artifacts in order to store and use power. The series follows Rune St. John 20 years after an attack on the Sun Court, leaving him the only surviving member of his family. He and his companion Brand now take odd jobs in order to make ends meet, and their most recent job is to find and recover the missing son of Lady Justice. However, the more they uncover surrounding the circumstances of his disappearance, the clearer it becomes that something much bigger is going on. Now onto the queer rep. The world itself is super queer. Polyamory and group marriage is super common and very normalized. Multi-gender attraction is the norm for most of the people. Our main character Brune is gay and demisexual. His companion Brand is bisexual, and the love interest is pansexual. There are also other side characters introduced in this book that are queer as well, including an asexual character, and each book in the series and the bonus content just gets more and more queer as time goes on. There are a few content warnings for this book though, including sexual violence and rape, so beware of that and be sure to look up other content warnings as well. Next is an upcoming book I want to recommend, and that is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. This is a young adult sci-fi which releases on July 14th. This book is set in Nova City in a world where superheroes exist, and the biggest superhero in this city is Shadowstar. We follow our main character Nick, who is a Shadowstar fanboy and the author of the longest running fanfiction featuring Shadowstar and an original male character who is really just a self-insert. After Nick and his friend are rescued by Shadowstar, Nick decides that he is going to do anything he possibly can in order to become an extraordinary himself, and he develops a series of increasingly ridiculous schemes in order to awaken these superpowers. Nick is incredibly awkward and so oblivious, and it makes for some really hilarious situations throughout the book. As for queer representation, Nick is gay, the love interest is bi, and two of the girls in their friend group are in a relationship with each other. Nick also has ADHD, which his rep I think is particularly well done and very relatable. And both Nick and his friend Seth have anxiety, which is featured throughout the book, and once again I think it's very well done. Content warnings though for this book include discussions of parental death and child abuse of a side character, so look into those as well.
Hey everybody, it's Anna, and I am here today to hype up some queer books for you as part of a collab that I'm doing with Kathy for the Queer Lit Readathon. The backlist title is Who is Vera Kelly by Rosalie Knecht. I love this book because it is a Cold War spy thriller that follows a bisexual woman working for the CIA in South America during the Cold War. I feel like we don't get enough queer spy stories where the characters are adults, and I also love historical fiction, which is another reason why I enjoy this. It also takes place in a locale that I don't read very often about, which, as I mentioned, is various places in South America. And my hyped upcoming queer release is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is by a trans Latinx author, and it contains both of those representations in the main characters, so I know that this is about a character who is trying to explain their transness to their family and then ends up falling for somebody who is dead or a ghost or something like that. I am very excited for that. Thank you very much, Kathy, for asking me to collab with you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!
Hi, I'm Luce from Things Lucy Reads, and the backlist title I would like to recommend is The Black Tides of Heaven by Neon Yang, published under the name J.Y. Yang. I really enjoyed this book because not only was it extremely queer, it was such a vibrant and well-realized world, unlike anything that I had ever read before. It was so interesting. All of the politics and the conflicts between people were really, really fascinating, and I flew through this book and I loved every single second of it. And it was also the first time that I'd ever read a book where the society was transnormative, where children were not assigned a gender at birth, but they were allowed to grow up and to be the gender they were most comfortable with. And it's also really groundbreaking in that one of the characters in the series, who is the main character of this book but is not the main character of any of the other books, although there's a lot of crossover between characters and they pop up in the other stories, they actually change their identity throughout the stories. So while in this book they identify as a man and go under he, him, in later books they use they, them instead. And that is also presented as being something completely normal within the world and totally commonplace and, you know, totally fine. And I thought that that was so important because I have never seen that happen in a series before, which is not to say it hasn't, it just means that I haven't read any like that. And I just have so much love for this series as a whole, but this book in particular is my favorite of the four. It's just absolutely phenomenal. and if you haven't read it yet, you are really missing out. And then the upcoming queer title that I am most anticipating has to be Striking Distance by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is a novel tie-in for the comic series Fence by C.S. Pacat and Johanna the Mad. This comic is so much like a sports anime, and that is on purpose, but it just really threw me back to those early days of watching Free and being totally enthralled by it, and the duels between the characters and then their emotions and their interactions are that same kind of absolutely over the top, almost nonsensical, but not quite getting to that point. And it's just such a delight, and I really, really enjoy it. Sarah Rees Brennan's other novel, In Other Lands, is one of my favorites. So I'm just really excited for Sarah Rees Brennan to bring her really, really funny, really engaging writing to this series about fencing that I absolutely adore. I can't wait to see what happens with those characters next.
Hi there, I'm Perry from the channel Literary Knitterary, and I'm here today in my most rainbow shirt to recommend you 2 books with bisexual main characters. So my first pick is In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is a YA portal fantasy that lovingly interrogates and deconstructs the tropes of YA fantasy and young adult literature in general. Essentially, our main character Elliot, who is a prickly bookworm who uses sarcasm as a defense mechanism and has no interest in learning to fight, is whisked away to a magical school, and the book follows his development through his teenage years as he learns more about himself and the magical world around him. We have a wide range of magical mythical creatures. We have a rigidly matriarchal elf society used to critique our own patriarchal gender norms. We have young people trying to combat the prejudice that they see in order to build a kinder and better world. We have Elliot identify as bisexual on the page, and we have a trope-busting love triangle. It's maybe not the one you think. My second pick is an upcoming release, which I believe is scheduled to come out on June 16th, and that is I'll Be the One by Lila Lee. This is a story about a bisexual Korean-American teen named Sky who dreams of being the first plus-sized K-pop star. So she enters a reality TV competition to become just that and has to navigate chasing her dreams while having a crush and dealing with the fat-phobic beauty standards of the community that she loves and wants to be a part of. This sounds like a really great mixture of fun and thoughtful, and it has just an amazing cover, so I am super excited for this to come out in a few weeks, and I can't wait to read it.
Hello, my name is Kira, and I have a book to talk to you guys about that I really, really loved. I read it last year and I absolutely loved it, and I've been thinking about it ever since. It is called Ziggy, Stardust, and Me. This is actually a historical YA LGBTQ+ book about this boy named Jonathan who lives in 1973. In 1973, being gay was still considered a psychological disorder, but it was the last year that being gay was considered a psychological disorder. You have our main character, Jonathan, who struggles with his sexuality because for his frame of reference, there's something wrong with him. Society has told him that there's something wrong with him. Even the American Psychological Association tells him that it's a disorder that he has been struggling with. So he is actually trying to find his identity. This book is definitely a transition book. This book takes place for who he desires to be and longs to be and what society expects of him. As time goes on, we see him flourish and we see him meet a boy named Webb, and they just hit it off, and it's just such a wonderful, cute romance, but this is also an extremely hard-hitting book because of the context. I love this book. This book makes such a statement and is so important to the LGBTQ+ community because of the time period that it took place and what it stands for. Ziggy Stardust is his favorite musician, and during this time in 1973, music was also an escape, so it does talk about how your dreams can save you. The other book that I'm really, really excited for that is coming out is called You Exist Too Much, a novel by Zaina Arafat. This book starts out about a 12-year-old girl from Bethlehem, and she actually confesses to her mother that she is gay. There's this intensified sense of shame because of her cultural and religious background, and her mother actually tells her that she exists too much. As time goes on, we see her grow, we see her become more of who she was meant to be. We see her travel from US, Middle East, and Palestine as she becomes this famous DJ. Our main character struggles with her sexual identity because of cultural and religious background. And this intense story charts a longing for both love and a place to call home.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth from Lizzie Creative, and I'm going to hype some LGBTQ books for Pride Month, and I'm going to share a backlist title and a book that's coming out that I'm excited about. My backlist title is from Sophie Gonzalez, and it's called Only Mostly Devastated, and it is a Grease retelling that is super fun, and Grease is a very like 1980s rom-com kind of movie, and so I enjoy a lot with my LGBT books, like books that are funny and they're lighthearted and they're just like make me think of happier times, and especially like as we're all like kind of stuck inside, and like since a lot of Pride events have been canceled this summer, like a happy rom-com-esque kind of LGBTQ read is like perfect. Only Mostly Devastated is like hilarious. I really like the main characters, and I think the romance is super cute. It's very high school-esque, and it's a Grease retelling, so it's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of drama, and a lot of stuff set in high school and like teen cliques. It has a great cast of side characters who have sexuality like across the spectrum, from gay, lesbian, bisexual, to all sorts of conversations about what that means in a high school and coming out, and people who are already out, and it's just like a really great read. And then for a book that's coming out, I'm super excited to check out the Falling in Love montage this summer. This is about two lesbian girls who go over the summer, like try to do like all the rom-com dates without falling in love, is what it sounds like, and that is exactly what I need to read this summer. Like, it sounds cute, it sounds fun, and I just need a cute fun read for the summer. So it comes out June 9th, and I'm excited to pick it up in June for Pride Month and read it. Happy Pride, folks!
Hi, I'm Morgan from the channel Little Word Weaver. For my first book today, I would like to recommend These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This book is about a young witch named Hannah, a teenager, and she is also lesbian, and she has just broken up with another girl and is trying to find her way in the world while she's working on witch things, and her ex happens to be a witch as well and is kind of the only character that really knows this part of her life. So she's working with that. She has, you know, the friendship and the school and the family life issues, but also this whole extra magical world where it's set in our world, but then there's magic and not everyone knows about magic. And you know, she works in a magic shop, and she has a trans magic friend, and then she has a crush on another girl who ends up being bi. Are they gonna get together? Well, I won't ruin it for you, but I'm here recommending it as a queer book. So there's definitely some elements of queer romance in this book. And I thought it was a really fun, exciting, thrilling adventure book. It's definitely not dark. There are dark things that happen in it, as tend to happen in thrillers about witches, but on the whole it was a fun read, and the sequel just came out, so I'm very excited to be reading that one soon. And then for my new book, I'm recommending What If It's Us. So this is a book that just came out very recently. I just read it last week. It came out in early May 2020. It is about two boys. It's a male-male rom-com who, one is in New York for the summer, one lives in New York. One is Jewish, one is Puerto Rican, and they meet each other in a post office while this guy here, Ben, is mailing a box back to his ex. And Arthur, who's like this young, love-struck guy, he's never really been in love before, but he's like, he has all these ideals and idealistic views of love, decides that this guy that he randomly met, who he didn't get his name or number, might just be the one for him. Like, the universe might want them together. It's their whole journey of really self-exploration. They already know their sexuality, so it's not that kind of an exploration book, but I feel like it's definitely an exploration of first loves and friendship, and there's a lot of cool elements in this, and it feels very realistic and a lot like high school. If I had known that I was gay in high school, I imagine my life would have been like this, but it took me a little longer to figure that out. So those are my two queer books.
Hi everybody, my name is Miss Shelly, and my channel is Miss Reader. I'm so excited to be a part of this opportunity. Anything LGBTQ+, I am here, I am ready, let's go. I can't wait to see what the other creators have, and I'm really hoping that there are a lot of books that I can add to my TBR. The two books I have for you today, unfortunately I don't have either of them with me, but we'll just deal. My backlist title recommendation is my favorite book of all time. It's Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. And listen, I know this is not a very unique recommendation, but I cannot stress enough how much I love this book. As far as representation goes, I believe both of the male characters are bi, and it's about them engaging in a relationship, one of them for the first time with a man. And as far as that goes, it's not very unique. It's just a general coming out, coming of age story. But the human sentiments that are expressed in this book are so wise and intimate. It's so well written. I just think it's a great study of humanity, and I love it with all my heart. If you want something that gives you feelings, trust me, this book is it. And then my debut new LGBTQ book recommendation is called Ink in the Blood by Kim Smejkal. And this actually just came out in February. It was part of the Book of the Month box. It's a YA fantasy novel. I am not a fantasy reader. Let me tell you, it is not my genre at all, but I was obsessed with this book. The whole tone of it is like steampunk, medieval, dark magic, and the writing is so well done. There's ace, demi, bi, lesbian representation, and then gender representation wise, there's an aura that surrounds everybody, and everybody has their own unique color, like a fingerprint, but that color is basically how your gender is expressed. So outside of he, she, they, it's just a huge spectrum that's just ingrained in this whole world. One of the things I really liked about this book is that all the LGBTQ aspects are just part of the book. They have nothing to do with the plot at all, and it's just about those people living their lives, which we need more of. The actual plot of the book is about these two girls escaping a sort of toxic cult religion and traveling with a magical theater troupe, but about how their past comes to haunt them both. I hope that you can pick either of those books up. Thanks for watching.
Hi, my name is Katrina Eames. I make YouTube videos about fandom, books, and activism on my channel. Thanks so much for including me in this, Kathy. The backlist title I am recommending is Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan. It was published back in 2005, and it tries to imagine a community where sexual orientation and gender diversity is normal and accepted to some extent. It isn't a perfect book, and in the past 15 years, a lot has changed, making some of the things in the book outdated. And to me, that's awesome. And that's part of the joy of reading it, because I think it shows where we were as a community back in 2005 and what we were looking for. Honestly, things are better now than what was imagined in the book, and isn't that awesome? Haven't we come so far? The new queer read I want to tell you about is The Love and Lies of Ruxana Ali by Sabine Khan. This book was published in 2019 and is a story of a lesbian whose immigrant parents catch her making out with her secret white girlfriend. Her parents then decide to take her back to Bangladesh because America has corrupted their child. As a queer Thai person, I don't often get to see myself in the media, at least not all of myself. I have to specifically seek out fragments of who I am when I'm looking for stories about people like me. So a story about a South Asian lesbian who has trouble connecting to her more conservative parents speaks to me on a guttural level.
Hey y'all, my name is Yvette and my channel is Book Cave. The backlist book I want to recommend is Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis. This is a historical fiction novel about 5 queer women living in 1977 Uruguay. During this time, there was a pretty harsh dictatorship in power, and it was a very unsafe time and place to be queer. These women all live in the capital Montevideo, and it's there that they find each other and decide to buy a house together on a secluded beach miles away from the city. Over the next few decades, this is the place where the women would go to be themselves, away from husbands and controlling families, and a city where saying the wrong thing, let alone being queer, could get you kidnapped, tortured, and killed by the government. The writing in this book is really, really pretty, and this is just a gorgeous story about friendship and the fight to not just survive, but to live and love and thrive in a world where doing that isn't easy. An upcoming queer book that I am looking forward to is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a Latinx YA fantasy about a trans boy named Yadriel who wants to perform a brujo rite of passage, but because his family is very traditional, they won't let him. He decides to go ahead with the ritual himself and tries to summon the ghost of a murdered cousin. Instead, what happens is that Yadriel accidentally summons the ghost of the school bad boy Julian, and Julian refuses to leave until Yadriel helps him resolve some unfinished business. And while he's doing that, he starts getting feelings for Julian. I am so excited for this book. I've heard nothing but good things about it. It comes out on September 1st, and if you're the type to pre-order, there is a pretty good pre-order campaign going on right now.
Y'all want some gay shit? Cause I got the good gay shit. Hello, I'm David Popovich. Nice to meet you, and I got some gay books for you. As a gay man and a furry, I could easily talk about the book that helped me come out, Waterways by Kyle Gold, or the Out of Position series, but I got something better. Ryan Campbell's God of Clay and Forest Gods of the Firebearers trilogy, a story about brothers, gods, questioning your parental figures, discovering the truth, and all set to a pre-colonized Africa. About how a son of the king gets kidnapped by a son of the forest god, while the other is forced out of his village and begins to get corrupted by the evil fire god. Filled with political intrigue, fantastical animal gods, great characters, a budding romance between a man and a god, and all set to a unique background. I highly recommend these books for those looking for something new and different. And if you love them and wonder where book 3 is, me too. Actually, I just tweeted the author and it looks like the final book will come out at the end of the year. I waited 5 years for this, so there's no reason for you not to get on board. And for my new and upcoming... God, I don't know. I can never keep up with book news, so anything new to me is already 2 to 5 years old, and I wish I was better at it, so I'm going to recommend something that's new to me. Cheating? Honey, I was only supposed to list 2 books. So I recommend The Giddy Death of the Gays and The Strange Demise of the Straights by Redfern John Barrett. Mainly because I wanted to say that title. It's just so... wordy. I love it. But also cause Cloud Cuckoo Country made a great video about it, so surprise booktuber recommendation! It's a fascinating story about a man falling in non-sexual love for another man while also dating a girlfriend. We got poly, we got ace, we got gender identity, we got exploration of pronouns. This book is so gay, she's fabulous. Okay, that's enough mad ramblings for one day, so what are you waiting for? Go read some books!
Hi. I'm Linda, and you can find me at Crimson Daisy on Twitter and on YouTube. For my queer backlist release that I wanted to tell you about, I chose Into the Drowning Deep by Mira. Not many people talk about the fact that this actually has a female-female relationship pretty much at the center, but even beyond that, it has such a diverse cast with multiple deaf characters, autistic characters, and characters of color. This is a horror novel about a group of people who are investigating rumors of killer mermaids in Mariana's Trench, and it reads just like a horror film. It's really good. And for a newer release that I want to talk to you about, this isn't an upcoming one, but one that I'm so excited about, and it came out just recently, and it's The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. Again, not many people know that this is actually queer, but this includes both male-male and female-female representation, and it's about the spirits of the city New York banding together in order to defeat a cosmic horror that is threatening it.
Hello, my name is Sakina from Sakina Vanessa, and I'm here to talk about hype about queer books. First, I am going to talk about a backlist book, and that one is It's Not Like It's a Secret by Misa Sugiura. So we follow a girl who moves in to California with her whole family. She tries to get herself to fit into her new school, her new environment, her new home, but she questions herself, the relationship that she thinks she has with her father. Our main character, of course, is queer. I'm not sure actually the label that she places herself in. Well, I'm very good in describing books, as you can see. This book basically aims on the thing that your identity shouldn't be something that holds you back. It shouldn't be difficult, or you shouldn't fear what the world will think of you when you open yourself up like that. I love also how this discusses family relationships as well as race, because her school has a mix of all kinds of diverse races, from Asian to Latino, which is very nice to observe when reading such a casual high school story, but at the same time you get to discuss very important topics within this book, which I appreciate. I'm only saying that the discussions held inside the book about it is a great message to any person, basically. The feelings that I had for the characters and their relationships were so surreal. I was baffled of how much feelings crept out of my heart for such a book, so that says a lot. The next book that I want to talk about is an upcoming or a new release, which is Late to the Party by Kelly Quinblad. This is a very chill and comforting read in my perspective based from what I've read in the synopsis, because I very much relate also to the situation of the main character in regards to being a kind of introvert or misfit. We follow a girl who is basically just an introvert who spends time with her 2 best friends, in their basement who watches Netflix all day long because same, no regrets. One day, they decide to do something different. So they go to this party. But when she goes to this party, she discovers that she is not the only one who is, queer. But the problem is with all these new experiences that our main character has been facing in regards to more parties, hanging out with new people, things like that. Her two best friends that hung out with her in the first place in the beginning of time wasn't a part of that anymore. So I think that not only does the queer representation will be recognized in this book, but also about the importance of friendship in your circle.
Hello! First of all, Kathy, thank you so much for including me in this. The backlist book that I've chosen is You Know Me Well by Nina LaCour and David Levithan. I feel like this is an underrated banger from two best-selling, award-winning queer authors. The reason that I love this book is that while it does focus on the romantic entanglement of its two main characters, Mark and Kate, for the most part, this is a story about queer friendship. Mark and Kate have been sitting next to each other in class for an entire year, but it's not until a fateful night at San Francisco Pride that their lives are pushed together, and they navigate the joys and heartache that comes with first love together. It is about the two of them becoming friends, and it's just wonderful. I genuinely think it's one of my favourite David Levithan collaborations, and that's saying something. He's done a lot. The new title that I want to hype is Hideous Beauty by William Hussey. The reason that I love this book so much is that it is a gay YA mystery set in the UK that is sort of in the vein of people like Caleb Rotherig, who wrote the books White Rabbit and Last Seen Leaving. It has sort of vibes of that, but it's set in the UK. It is about a couple called Dylan and Ellis whose secret relationship is exposed, and the response they're met with is actually super lovely. But their happiness is short-lived. I won't say too much more than that. It is a romance and a mystery story that has sort of shades of Caleb Rotherig in it, and I think it's a lovely addition to the UK YA queer canon.
And hello, it's me again. You didn't think I was going to do this video and not recommend books, did you? Because that would just be silly. For my backlist title, I'm going to talk about Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. This is a book that I actually read in my in-person book club, and for the most part, we really enjoyed it. There is a section towards the end that kind of strained credulity a little bit, but I personally enjoyed it. And that's probably because this has to do with a small town girl going to the bigger town and making it in the theater, and then also along the way realizing that she likes girls. This is historical fiction. I can't remember exactly which decade it's set in, but it is a far ways away from our current time and goes over about a decade in the plot, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. As for a new or upcoming release, there is a little bit of an elephant in the room because one of the people that you've already seen in this video is a debut novelist, and their novel is coming out on August 6th. That person is George Lester, and the book is Boy Queen. I might embarrass George a little bit by gushing about his book right now, but I'm going to do it anyway. I was fortunate enough to get an ARC of this from the publisher, and I ended up absolutely enjoying it. Again, it makes sense as to why I would. Robin is a triple threat. He acts, he sings, he dances, he wants to go to theater school. He's just at the end of his high school career and trying to figure out which school he can possibly get into. And then on his 18th birthday, he goes to the club and learns all about drag. As a former theater student myself, I absolutely enjoyed this. I actually went to theater school for a couple of years before I ran away to Europe. And like all good art, it made me want to go back on the stage. It made me want to try drag. And I would, but it is so darn expensive, and we're in quarantine right now, so it's not like I can really enlist the help of the people around me to show me the ropes. One day though, one day. And that about sums up this video. Like I said, all of these booktubers as well as the books they mentioned will be listed down below in the description, so be sure to check them out. I'm sure that your TBR, like my TBR, has grown a lot in the last hour or so. Have you read any of these books, and what did you think about them? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have been asking if there is a way to support me, and I do have a Ko-fi account, so that link is down below, as well as my Amazon wish list. Please like this video and share it far and wide to everyone who could possibly want to read queer books, and I will see you very soon. Bye!